Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Walk and Talk, the dog training podcast that enables me to ride along with you on your dog walk and share my most valuable training tidbits I've got tucked away in the recesses of my brain after more than 10 years spent professionally training, cuddling, and generally nerding out over dogs right here in the UK. So first up, I would just like to say thank you to everyone who messaged me on Instagram over the weekend following last week's episode. It was really... I was going to say enlightening, but that's not what I mean. I wasn't enlightened. It was really affirming, maybe, that so many of you actually reached out to say you did feel like you felt pressured into neutering your dogs, and in some cases, obscenely early. I think one person told me their puppy had been neutered at 11 weeks old. And yet not many people, whether that was your friends or your family or your vet, were really able to adequately explain why you should neuter your dog. So I'm glad that all the info in that episode proved useful and valuable to so many of you. If you haven't listened to it yet, essentially last week I did a little deep dive on neutering. The effects if you do decide to neuter, the effects if you don't, the effects of the timing of the surgery, the impacts of it on your dog's behaviour and their health prospects, and, you know, just all of that juicy knowledge. So if that's something you don't really know a lot about, and it seems like not a lot of people are as clued up as they would like to be, but you would like to know more about it, I highly recommend last week's episode, if I do say so myself. But for now, let's move on to today's topic, which the universe actually sent my way by means of a sneaky little incident that happened to us on one of our own dog walks a few days ago, in which Albie was rushed by an off-lead dog who unfortunately was aggressive, and it was quite unpleasant for all of us. Luckily, no skin was broken, so physically Albie was absolutely fine. But knowing that he's a teenage dog who is likely to be heavily impacted by an experience like that, I had to get my behaviour head on quick smart and design the next couple of days around trying to do my very best to create a world in which this incident does not stick in his mind, does not cause him to become dog reactive, and does not really have any long-term ramifications on his confidence around other dogs or out there in the world. Because to be honest, although Albie is a pretty happy and confident dog, he hasn't always been, and I think he's definitely the most skittish puppy I've ever owned. I would say that his fear periods as a youngster were very pronounced, and I had to actively grow his confidence and optimism as opposed to him just, you know, rocking up with his own suitcase full of it in the way that my Labrador did when she was a puppy. So I know a lot of dog trainers who share discussions or commentary on these kinds of incidents with off-lead dogs will first and foremost want to spout all the usual rage about the off-lead dog. But personally, I think that's utterly pointless because you can only control the controllable. And reacting with rage to a negative situation like this isn't going to get you to anything like the positive outcome that responding with rationality will. So we can all go out and feel really annoyed when we head out to train our dogs at the park or the beach or wherever, and there's someone with the off-lead dog that is just allowed to bowl up to everyone, and that dog bowls up to you and your reactive dog or your nervous dog or your elderly dog and does whatever it is you've been working on. We can all do that, but really, you're just carrying around a hot coal that's only burning your own hand. What if you just flipped your mindset to accept, and I know it's frustrating, but remember, we can only control ourselves, our actions, our decisions, and our responses. We have zero control over every other human and their dog out there. So what if we just accepted, you know what? This walk might not go perfectly. I'm going to do my best, but I don't control the universe and something might go wrong. First of all, if you do that, you're already better placed to just shake it off if it does go wrong. And second of all, in this episode, I'm going to give you the toolkit you need to feel as confident as possible that even if something bad happens, you are fully equipped to deal with it, and you have the most relevant knowledge and advice in your back pocket to help your dog recover, to ensure the impact of the event, whatever it is as minimal as possible, and to maintain the confidence or the optimism or the sociability of your dog that you had achieved before this incident. So if you do have a young puppy or a teenage dog or a reactive dog or a fearful or nervous dog or whatever the struggle is, or, you know what, even if you don't have one of these struggles, an aggressive encounter with another dog can still potentially have an impact on your dog's behavior, then this episode is for you because I'm about to take you step by step through my recipe for regulation that you can apply after any stressful incident like this, in which your dog is otherwise physically fine, but perhaps seriously shaken up. Okay, so let's dive in right at the point this stressful incident has happened and that off lead spaniel has been grabbed and hauled off your dog. Obviously, the first thing you're going to want to do is create space for your dog. It's likely that dog is going to be marched away anyway, so you're all good. But please refrain from effing and jeffing at the owner because you're only going to stress yourself out even further. And if you and they decide to stand and have this big verbal face off, you're not giving your dog space. You're just lengthening the hideous incident he's experienced, except now you're making it like a group incident, pack v pack. So it's got bigger now. And that's not what either of you need. Make space, walk on. If you can try to not dive around a corner so the trigger is still close, even though they're not visually accessible to your dog, in my opinion, it's better to create distance first. So your dog knows that the trigger is far enough away to no longer be a threat and they're not anticipating them springing back around that corner. Now, at this point in time, your dog's sympathetic nervous system is running the show. So they're in fight or flight mode and there's not a lot of thinking going on. So it's incredibly likely that any cues your dog knows that you're trying to use in this moment are falling on completely deaf ears. Like you're trying to cue them to turn around or follow you or walk to heel or just check in. They're not snubbing you. It's just literally the part of their brain that deals with that stuff has left the cockpit right now. So your first job is to get that guy back in the room. Or in other words, you need to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. And here's how you're going to do that. So first of all, remember that your energy matters. So be slow, be calm, keep your voice soft, and don't be reactive. This is why I don't want you to shout expletives at your fellow dog walker. I also, and this might sound counterintuitive, but I don't want you to be overly fussy or OTT comforting to your dog. As long as you can see that he is physically fine, there is no injury that requires attention, I don't want you to coddle or baby talk or pick up your dog, because the message this sends is, oh, okay, shit, there is something to be really scared about here because the human is trying to protect me. So the threat must be real and it must still be present. So I can't afford to relax. Now, you know the threat is not present because we've just created the space that proves that. So now you really just need to be a safe, grounded presence for your dog. Now, while you're still on your walk, and I encourage you to keep walking for a while rather than just dive back into your house, you can let your dog decompress through scent. Nose work really helps to regulate the nervous system in dogs. So if he wants to stop and sniff, don't speed him along. Let him sniff. If he's not sniffing at all, I would scatter some treats or some kibble or whatever you have with you in the long grass or along the pavement and encourage the sniffing. What you really want here is sniffing and movement. Dogs are such amazing animals at regulating their emotions. If we let them, you are incredibly likely to see your dog do one or more full body shakes, like when they're shaking off after a bath. And this is one way that they regulate their stress, by physically shaking it out of their body, so to speak. Whenever I see either of my dogs do a shake off like that, I love it so much. I actually mark and reward it because it's such a great thing for them to do. Okay, so you've encouraged plenty of slow and steady movement and lots of sniffing, probably by ensuring you continued your walk for at least another 10 minutes or so, giving your dog time to regulate, time to shake the incident off, and time to experience that same environment they were in a positive and non-stressful way to lessen the likelihood of any negative associations being made with a particular space or a particular walking route. And now you've arrived home. What you're going to do is act exactly how you always would after a walk. No over-the-top coddling or fussing. And then you're going to give your dog space and time. If possible, I'd try to set up an environment that encourages decompression. So if you have noisy children running around, I'd maybe set him up in another room or instruct them to quieten down. If you have a busy front window that he likes to bark at usually, or, just sit and patrol, I'd close those curtains. You get the idea. Keep things as chill and non-stimulating as possible and give him time and space. And bonus points if you already have a closure cue that perhaps you use to end a training session, like all done or that's finished. Because if your dog is already familiar with this, it can help to signal again that it's time to shift out of a heightened state, which can be really powerful for your dog. So that's your super short term plan. If we now zoom out and look at things slightly longer term, first of all, you don't have to walk him tomorrow. You can both take a day or two to come down, get over it, and feel ready to return to walks. Studies show that it can take 72 hours for our dogs to physiologically reset after a stressful event. And if you take him out again before he's ready, he's far more likely to have a negative reaction than if you gave him that time and space to truly regulate back to status zero, if you like. And in the meantime, you can work on one or more of the following little games and exercises I'm about to run through that will all help to build a sense of calm and confidence, as well as exercising your dog's body and his mind so that missing one or two walks is not going to be a problem at all. So, the first exercise you can work on is really simple, but it's actually really valuable for everyday life, not just as a post stress exercise. And that is mat work with reinforcement, which simply means cueing your dog to go to a familiar mat or their bed and rewarding him for settling, chewing, or just relaxing. If your dog enjoys touch, and not all dogs do, you could give him a little massage while he's on there. But essentially, what you're doing is setting up a predictable, calm, and safe resting spot. If your dog is ready for something a little bit more active, you can do some gentle trick training if that's something you guys usually enjoy. But I'd focus on easy wins here rather than introducing something totally new or something really tricky that might frustrate him, because the goal in this scenario isn't really the learning of the new trick, but it's in the fact that learning something simple and achievable boosts your dog's confidence and it gives him a little success story to bank. So, good exercises for this are really easy things like a nose target touch or a chin rest, a spin, or even just an eye contact cue. Just keep it really light, really fun, and full of praise. And if your dog struggles with something, ditch it. Move to something that your dog fully already knows. Like just run through some sit stands, a couple of transitions, something simple. The idea here is banking lots of successes. Another great thing you can do for your dog, even whilst you're staying at home, is set up a little decompression sniffari indoors. And you can do this by scatter feeding some food through a snuffle mat, or you can just do it with a rolled up bath towel, or you can even just simply scatter it around a room in your home. Let him take his time with it. And once again, you're helping him to activate that parasympathetic nervous system and lower his stress hormones, whilst also providing a little mental enrichment as well. If you feel your dog is recovering well and they're up for a bit more of a challenge, you could also build them a little indoor confidence building obstacle course using cushions from your sofa, chairs, broomsticks, blankets, cardboard boxes, shoe boxes, whatever you can find that is safe for your dog to explore. And you can encourage them to explore and to move over these unpredictable surfaces and things that might move slightly just by scattering some food in there, because this will help to shift their focus to physical exploration, build a feeling of agency, and help to restore playful curiosity as opposed to worry about everything in the environment. Playing the name game is another great way to help reform positive associations and remind him that you will always be his safe space, no matter where he is, no matter what's happening around him. And it's basically just recall practice in the home, making sure that you really reward every time he comes and connects with you super generously, and just keep the whole experience positive and upbeat. Now, those are just a few really simple ideas for ways you can connect with your dog. But remember, nobody knows your dog as well as you do. So if you know he'd love an hour cuddled up on the sofa in front of the TV, or he'd love some interactive play with something out of his toy box, by all means, go for it. You can gently initiate play and then let him guide the intensity. Whatever brings you both joy is always a winner. Just remember that you don't need to dive into all of this as soon as you get home from that stressful walk. So, to recap the main points in this episode that I want you to take away with you, chuck them in your toolkit and remember them so they're ready when you need them. If you and your dog do ever face an intensely stressful encounter or experience on a walk, the first thing you need to do is create space for your dog to help them feel safe. The next thing is to help them activate their parasympathetic nervous system with gentle movement, lots of sniffing, and making sure that you yourself stay calm and grounded. When you return home, create as untriggering an environment as you possibly can and allow your dog time and space to rest and regulate. And if you feel it's appropriate, ditch the walks for a day or two and replace them with some pressure-free, success-focused games and exercises at home, and your dog will feel amazing again before you know it. Ultimately, I've seen so many dogs who have had an encounter like this at the wrong time in their training journey, and their confidence has taken a real bash, and they've ended up resorting to some reactive behaviors to help make themselves feel safer on walks. And I don't want that to be your story with your dog. It doesn't need to be. There's so much you can do to help make this incident a non-event in the timeline of your dog's training journey. So I hope you found this episode useful. If you did and you'd like some more exercises and games you can play with your dog to help you grow his confidence or his focus, or perhaps improve his recall, or whatever your struggle currently is, I have a fantastic, if I do say so myself, design your own dog training pack that you can download from my website at listendogtraining.com, and it is packed full of different dog training games and exercises, as well as guidance on how to put together your own bespoke training plan, designing it using the games and exercises inside the pack to tackle your specific struggle or achieve your specific goal. Each of the exercises has highlighted the core benefits or learning outcomes it will help you to achieve at the top, so that you're fully empowered to weave together the training that is going to get you exactly the results you're after. Or it's a great little booklet of inspiration if you're just after more cool and creative things to do with your dog. And since you're listening to this podcast, that's probably you, right? Alternatively, if you want to check out all of my free tips, tutorials, and dog training hacks, you can do so on both TikTok and Instagram, all under the same handle, which is @listendogtraining. And you are always most welcome to DM me there as well if you have any questions about anything I've said in this week's episode. I'm always happy to chat dogs, obviously. But for now, I think I've definitely chatted dogs for long enough, so I shall leave you to enjoy the rest of your dog walk, and I'll catch up with you same time next week for another episode of The Walk and Talk.